Hi everybody, we are going to talk about Blade Runner today. We are going to look at Blade Runner 2019, which is the original Blade Runner made by Ridley Scott, from a theological standpoint of empathy. The movie Blade Runner explores the question of what it means to be human. It does so by juxtaposing the world of human beings with the world of androids. I want to explore this question of what it means to be human from the point of view of the android Roy, played by the actor Rutger Hauer. The android Roy is the one that has the most profound character arc in the movie. He starts off as this killing machine that is following his instinct for self-preservation. And in the process of the movie, he ends up turning into a Christ figure of sorts. The movie Blade Runner is set up in a world that is run and controlled by Tyrell Corporation.
Commerce is our goal here at Tyrell. More human than human is our motto.
Tyrell Corporation builds androids, which are biomechanical beings that look like human beings, that act like human beings. These androids are used as slave labor in off-world colonies to work in hazardous environments. The key difference between an android and a human being is that an android does not have empathy. Human beings have empathy. Androids are powerful beings, but because they lack empathy, they are sentient but still distinct from human beings. Because androids are so powerful, Tyrell Corporation has an artificial age limit set on androids, saying that an android will die after 4 years. The body will self-destruct after 4 years of living. Of course, androids being sentient beings, they do not like this artificial limit. So from time to time, they rebel against Tyrell Corporation by coming to Earth and trying to figure out a way in which they can expand their lifespan. And when they do that, the people that are brought in to contain them are called Blade Runners. So a Blade Runner is a kind of a bounty hunter that is brought in to retire these androids, which is basically to kill these androids. In the movie Blade Runner, the character of Blade Runner is played by Harrison Ford. So, in Blade Runner 2019, 4 androids escape from this off-world colony and they've come to Earth. They are led by this android Roy. They are trying to figure out a way to extend their lifespans. Deckard, played by Harrison Ford, is brought in as the Blade Runner to retire all these 4 androids. Roy, who's the leader of this group, has a singular focus. His goal is to get to the owner of Tyrell Corporation and have him expand his lifespan. He's been on this killing rampage in order to get to the owner of Tyrell Corp. Eventually he gets to the owner of Tyrell Corp and he asks him for his life to be expanded, or his lifespan to be expanded. The owner of Tyrell Corporation says there's just no way to do that.
What seems to be the problem? Death. Death. Well, I'm afraid that's a little out of my jurisdiction.
Upon hearing this disappointing news, Roy kills the owner of Tyrell Corp. At that point, there are 2 symbolic events that happen that are important. One, he notices that his right hand is starting to malfunction. And in order to fix that, he picks up a nail from a wooden plank and pierces that into his right palm. This is symbolic of the piercing of the hands of Christ. The second symbolic event is Roy goes and takes a dove which symbolizes peace. it is an symbolic event of him making peace with his own impending death. After he does that, there is an important shift in the story. Roy is still powerful, way more powerful than Deckard. Deckard is barely hanging by the skin of his teeth. In fact, Roy has already broken his fingers. Deckard is running away from Roy, and at the end he's hanging on this ledge on a building, and he's about to fall off. At this point, Roy, with his dove, comes over and looks at him, and he finds something interesting.
Quite an experience to live in fear, isn't it? That's what it is to be a slave.
He finds Deckard to have the same fear of death that he himself has. You see, empathy is the ability to have the same feelings that the other person has. In this place where Roy is more powerful than Deckard, and Deckard is about to die and he's afraid of death, Roy himself is going to die. He's made his peace with his death, but now he knows what it feels like to be afraid of dying. And that empathy makes Roy into the Christ figure in that scenario. He reaches out to Deckard, his erstwhile killer, with his right hand, which has the nail pierced through it, and he lifts him up from the ledge to save him. That is where Roy turns from being this killing machine to the Christ figure. How did that transformation happen? The transformation happened because when Roy made his peace with death, when Roy decided that it was time to accept his own death, his mind is freed. There is space in his mind to have empathy. It is when Roy has empathy for Deckard, reaches out his nail-pierced hands and saves him in being the Christ-like figure, he becomes more human than human. In fact, at the end when Roy dies, the white dove that he's been holding flies up as though his pure soul was departing from his body.
Time to die.
Jesus talks about this transformation in paradoxical terms in the Bible. He says, the one who loses his life finds it. The reason is, inasmuch as we are anxious about our own self-preservation, we will not be able to have empathy for other people. Heidegger is a philosopher that said, when we live our lives in a state of anxiety about death, we end up using other people as tools in our own project to distract us from our anxiety of death. Roy does that in the movie when he's fighting with Deckard. When he realizes he's going to die, he starts playing this cat and mouse game with Deckard.
You better get it up. I'm gonna have to kill you. Unless you're alive, you can't play, and if you don't play... Six, seven, go to hell or go to heaven. That's the spirit!
He knows he has enough power to kill Deckard if he wants to, but he wants to kind of step back and play this cat and mouse game as a way of distracting himself from the anxiety that comes from the idea of dying. It is only after he makes peace by picking up the dove with his own death that he's able to step out of that anxiety, step out of that mental fog that sometimes clogs us. And then, instead of using Deckard as a tool or anyone else as a tool, he's able to look at him with empathy. And so it is with our own lives. Inasmuch as our life is compulsively caught in this web of self-preservation instinct, we will not be able to look at life from another person's point of view. And in as much as we don't do that, we will end up using other people as tools in our own projects. In as much as we are able to stop ourselves from having that self-preservation instinct, in as much as we are able to make peace with our own death, we will be able to truly start having empathy for other people. Giving up our self-preservation instinct frees our mind to have empathy for other people. There's a philosopher called John Sullins. He says, the highest level of empathy is agape. Agape is the Greek word for self-giving love. The Bible talks about agape. Jesus says the highest love you can have for a person is to give your life for that person. When Jesus died on the cross, he displayed this agape love or this agape empathy. When Jesus wants us to be his followers, he wants us as disciples to display this agape empathy. I have to say that as a disciple of Christ, that is something that I often fail at, which probably is a topic for another discussion. But when we lose our instinct for self-preservation by trusting in God, then we will have empathy for other people. And in that, we will be more human than human. The essence of what it means to be human is that when we are able to have empathy, we are human. What Christ says is, inasmuch as we are able to step out of our self-preservation instinct, we are able to make space in our minds to have empathy for other people. And that is when we become Christ-like. And that is when we become more human than human. Thank you. If you like this video, feel free to share it, feel free to like this and subscribe to this channel. Thank you.